There are two things I would like to say before we begin. This is our 12th Lakeland Dialect Society service, and we have them every other year. So it must be 24 years since we had our first one. And we're very grateful to Vicar and folks at Dalston for making this possible. There'll be cups of tea provided afterwards to help with your sandwiches or whatever you're about to eat. There's normally a collection which we give to church where we are. And we welcome our preacher, John, and thank him very much for coming. And as we offer our worship, we'll remember and thank God for our late President, Miss Claudine Miller, who died last November, aged 98. She was a rare body, well known in Langtown, Brampton district. She loved folk of all ages. Befriended Belgian refugees in the First War. Did same with Polish refugees in Second Year. Took a job as scoutmaster when menfolk was scarce. She loved animals, worked for their well-being and for their rights. Even in the last years, in a wheelchair, blind and very hard of hearing, she was always in control of her life. The two hymns we were singing were written by Claudine, and at least one or two of dialect readings are hers. So we'll start with our first hymn. God set us in the land we love. I hope you'll all sing.
Oh
Bible it says, the years bottom and another, that we have to tell God about thousands of things with Jim round. Let him know that we're sadly bothered about them. We shouldn't try to have them up, because he's our Heavenly Father. And we should tell him about our wickedness very humbly, just like a loud barn goes to his father and mother, to say that he's sorry for some of his dear round. See that God will never outlive this time, because his love has near end, and his mercy goes on forever. I know you should be ready at all sorts of odd times to tell God, Jan's Jim round, the best time of all is when we come to worship together, to hear his holy word read out, and at the same time, to ask him for everything we think's necessary, both for our bodies and our souls. Say if first lesson is taken from the 20th chapter of Exodus. And God spake all these words, and said, As the Lord thy God had brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the spot where there was ill-treated, there were any other gods except for me. Thou must not discern any carved statues, or out to the earth like out that's in heaven above, nor the earth beneath, nor the water under the earth. Thou must bow down to them, nor pray to them, nor serve them. Because I, Lord the God, am a jealous God, and I'll put fathers' sins unto the barns up to the third and fourth generations of them that hate me, and show mercy to thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou must not name it, Lord the God, in vain, because Lord have not heard folks blameless and takes his name for now. Think on about Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days thou hast to work, and day out thou hast to do. But 7th day is Sabbath of Lord thy God. On it thou won't be a day like a work. Thee, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor the hired man, nor the servant lass, nor the beasts, nor anybody from foreign parts is stopping with them. Because in 6 days Lord made heaven and earth, sea, and all in them, and he rested 7th day. Said Lord blessed the 7th day and made it holy. Honour the father and the mother, saith to and bide a long time in the land that Lord the God gave her.
not know that there's no chance good, and that's God. But if thou wants to have everlasting life, then first of all, thou would keep commandments. The chap says, what commandments is them then? And Jesus says, didn't kill, no commit adultery, no steal. Didn't tell lies. Love the father and mother and the neighbour same road as thou loves thyself. And chap says, how do you know them things? Ever since I was a lad man? Is there something else? And Jesus says, aye. If thou wants to go all the way, then thou will get shut of all the gears. Give it all the way to poor folk and follow me. When young chap hears this, he goes away, can't go away. Because he's given for little brass. Jesus says to the disciples, Sister, thinkst thou that it's near bother for a rich man to get to heaven? I'd as soon expect to see a camel get itself scruffled through a needle's eye. The disciples were very flummoxed at this. We ever can be saved there. Jesus looked down at them and said, man be yourself and given out, but with God, out can happen. Then Peter spoke up. Look, sir, we left all and followed thee. What's it for us? Says Jesus, I'll tell you all this. In the world to come, when Son of Man is sitting on his throne in glory, there's 12 thrones for you to sit on, to judge 12 tribes of Israel. And every man has left house or kin, wife, brother, sister, father, mother, or lands, to follow me, and get all back 100 times over, and gain eternal life for mine. But soon, and thinks of the first, will pin themselves at back, and blasphemies will be whale fruit. Thanks be to God.
This one I'm going to read was composed by our late president, Miss Claudine Murray. Men have sung prayers to God and tell Bible tales. In every talk under the sea, Hebrew, Latin and Greek, and it's 500 years since first English Bible began. It was writ of a tongue, very like our own talk. The change to get a bit later on. But message it come out at Wordsworth same, no matter what shape it may do. Now some of us thought to sing praise to God at language our foreelders used, and to hear our Lord's tales in our own heavenly tongue was a wish it could scarce be refused. So we sung to God's praise, a cumberland way, and we prayed as our fathers had done, and we listened to tale how all Jacob lang syne met with Joseph his lang missing son. And we hearkened to tale at young that had strayed, and to shepherd that seeked it on fell, and wife with lost penny, and waster a young lad coming home to his father as well. And we seemed to be sitting by Galilee side among fishers and farming folk, and hearing tales for very first time fra Jesus in his own country talk. And to years far away betwixt us and the crew, and sat beyond far water side, and we felt that though heaven and earth pass away, his word will forever abide.
Far out on Blackpool, we sat by ourselves, when praise up fell ampler, brung sound at church bells. Ring to chin, chink on their chime, while we crouched up together, our hearts beating time. White clouds sailed over us, their shadows trailed by, to fells crowded inland, with heat's present sky, and deep in the country, strong sunlight struck down, till how moss and meadow on Sunday forenoon. Level for Nensters, a lark tuned its song. In the lane blown beside us, brown bumleys were throng. And wind whooshing eastward, brung chin to chin clear, till Jan on us whispered, "Is right to be here?" Right to be here? Aye, we're born to be right. With sky for our ceiling, and fell for our seat, green how for our footstool, free air for our pew, and us our two selves, congregation and you, with pillar for parson, Knockmerton for glad, for dogging and singers, breeze, bumblies and lad, and a flower stretched for a lampler, our Dean and Grace Yearn, till sea and dim Scotland, with clouds gloss of yearn. For service we want in, our thoughts rising high, lifting our hearts up through yon flecked sky. We nodded to God here, him wears na young, near if we kneeled under a roof, rest be man. Wales me for all Blackville, Wales me for that time, when we leaned on that brand spot, and heard that bell's chime. And I preached that loud psalm, si barn like and queer. We've both been long thankful, but God we got there.
And as you all know, I'm quite sure, weather's been doing its own thing for the last couple of years, hasn't it? So I think our chairman here decided that we'll just have a few readings about weather. Local sayings in rhyme for Joe Steele. When curlew whistles late at night, now that's a sign of snow and sleet. When helms load and foxes bark, far up you do it afore it's dark. When wind blows hard, press downly east, you mun fold your sheep and house your beast. A snowy April and a snizzy May makes farmers eat out their hay. She sets up her back that old crock yow, she'll never live to hear it cuckoo. A nanny peck lamb makes a dwining yow, would yarn out of 10 of them if it does down. If deaf trees bud afore yak, following summer will be black. But if yak buds tat a cummer, be sure it'll be a druffy summer. Fill aspen sack and keep it dry. The hearty yak it will be fine. But ella wood is 9 times better. The rest, the yak are under water. If Candlemas Day be cloudy and black, it'll carry away all winter on its back. If sunshine before it's near, winter depend on isn't half dear. If Candlemas Day be fine and clear, we'll have 2 winters in your year. If Candlemas Day be sunshiny and warm, you must mend your old mittens and look for a storm. The second reading I've been asked to do is What's a Chappinch? By my mother. What for, I wonder? Have we no dialect name for Robin Redgraves? Till I was getting well on, a scobby was a scobby. I'd never had to tell of a chappinch. A yellowhammer was a spinky, and in some places a yellow dowdring. Cuddy, local name for Cuthbert Hewlett, and Ginny Hewlett, owls. Ginny, of Jimmy Langneck, but herdens. Round Walls Mayburn, folks nuts are set up if they see a lock of herdens about live and effect. The foretell I gave you deeds in our future. Ginny Redtail, Redstand. Peggy Whitethroat, Whitethroat. Watanani, Sedge Warbler. Bessie Duker, Dipper. Bessie Blackcap, Reed Bunting. Felfors, a Field Fairs. Mizzlethrush is a gay few names. Stonecock, Belthrostle and Shreeley. Snipe, Headerblade. Landrail, Corncrane. Meadowcricket, Titlar. Linnet, Linty. Hedge Sparrow, Dikey Sparrow. A blue dikey, bright blue coloured eggs. Blackbird, Blackie. Wrens either a chitty, a chatterhead. Cuckoo, gout. I think it's near gout if you get somebody else to do all work for it. I wonder where I went wrong. Wood pigeon, cushat. Dog tail has it that Irish chap was going through the wood to steal one of his neighbour's coos and heard this voice say, "Tak 2 coos Paddy, so you went yam without curve. Magpie, Hire. Starlings, Chepster, Shepster, a shep. Wheatear, Steinchep. Lark, Laverick. Young crows are kelps. Willow wren, Millithorn. Carrion crow, dog, a keck crow. Watterousel, Watterpire. Curlew, wow. Plover, peewit. Its sad cries said to thee, I've lost my nest and I've ruined it. Road farmstead there, dog clocker with tear-through gaslin and steg. It'll have a bite off you try, and would break your leg with the end of his strong wings, giving half a chance. And girls can be gay flesome, sticking a neck out at Jan and hissing. Old village grounds used to have geese, and long said, at Kirkland there was a geese fair, where all appeared and other marks of every flock of geese in parish was recorded. In them days we turned them out onto the fell as soon as they could fend for themselves. Young folk today know all proper names for birds and set life, and don't ken all yans. It's a good job, and not.
This is a long poem I made up because I've been asked to do something for today. And it's about mother telling Bible stories and how they come to light. Young blue room was loud and low. Aunt dresser very old, shelves all set out with jugs and plates and cups with ribbons of gold. Then with that girt knack she always had, me mother showed us way. David, rosy Syrian man, with his yows up on one fell. At joiner's shop down village street, with shavings o'er the floor. I ken I see through dust and heat, Joseph's kinfolk at yon door. Mary, among old Yamly Row, was singing like a lark, with long lad Jesus there inside about his father's work. Me mother stirred, and then I kent, as she stood smiling there, her gown was of that very blue she'd made sweet Mary's hair. Old weak lamb and fells see old, lad David did I see, and frail cups with rims of gold. Now Jesus, sup with me.
'Twas year night last week, we do a walk after supper. We went out of the gate, was Nisbel to say. There was Stevie for Curthers and Mal Betty Byers, Deef Debbie for Bible, Bunton and me. We'd scarce begun spinning when Stevie sang a little. They'd been brung for Carl with their servant man. 'Twas all about Cummel and folk and fine places, and if I can think on, here's who it ran. Your Buckland wise gentry that's seen many counties, me preaching palaver and braggers the wheel, of mountains, lakes, valleys, woods, waters and meadows, but can he all Cummel and caps them all sleep. It's true we've made palaces shining among us, not tall marble doors to catch the weak eyes, but with money-famed castles were fit to our brave fathers, when Cumberland could only county defy. First Greystick we'll notice, the seat of good Norfolk, a name still to freeman and Englishman dear. Ye Cumberland folk, may your sons and your grandsons, say career honest statesmen forever revere. Corruption's a sink that'll puzzle the country, and lead us to slavery, to me it seems plain. But he that has courage to stem the black tongue, through Britain should pray for again and again. Where that his grim skidder has seen such a prospect, where fells prune our fells and his majesty by. Where that has seen Keswick can count half its beauties, may even try to count half the stars in the sky. There's Ullswater, Passington, Wastwater, Darwood, the thousands and thousands that travel to view. The longer the gaze, still the more they may wonder, and I as the wonder may find somewhat new. With Corby for rocks, caves and walks so delightful, that Eden a paradise loudly proclaims. All that sect-like places in our sect-like honours, there know many good folk be proud of their names. We've never been to the grand pride of the border, and Hazel to number near county can ban. We've rivers romantic as Dare, Tweed or Yarra, and greenwood vine bowers we'll be a song. We help one another, we welcome the stranger. Ourselves and our country we ever defend. We pay bits of taxes as well as we're able, and pray like through Britain's the war had an end. Then come along lads and ye dish rosy lassies. If some call you clownish, you needn't think shame. Be merry and wise, enjoy innocent pleasures, and I seek for health and contentment at home.
His corn wasn't ripen and they wasn't dry. He prayed for an hour, but next day for sure, it rained cats and dogs, frae a moth-eaten sky. Because moral of that is, you didn't always get what you asked for. Now, perhaps that was on the mind of a Cumbrian farmer, because one day he was out in fields and a colleague joined him. Colleague said, well, you can say what you like, you can't beat a good drop of rain. He said, it's champion, it brings everything up out of ground. And farmer replied, expect not, I've got 2 wires buried round here somewhere. Perhaps rain was also on a landlord's mind recently, because he was pulling a pint for a customer, and he looked out the window and he said, looks like rain. And customer replied, aye, and it tastes like it too. But to be serious now, down to nitty gritty. Sunday last March, after Evensong, I gave him a short sharp shift that day, I rushed down to Borough Park to watch Wookington play Wigan in first round at Rugby League Challenge Cup. Now in old days, in days of Risman and Paskins, or Edgar and Southard, Wookington would have hammered Wigan at Yam. If you'll pardon the expression, they would have given Wigan a real good wigging. However, this time there was only your team in it. Wigan were already 50 points up by the time I'd got on ground. Henderson Gill had already scored a hat-trick for Cherry and Whites. It was a far cry Fred Toon's glory days when I was a lad lad. But as I mingled in crowd, I noticed that your thing hadn't changed a bit, and I doubt if it ever will. And that was bias of old supporters. Get your specs on, ref. Supporters of each team would shoot whenever a decision went against their team. Aye, and many other things they said, not fit for a parson's ears. What's more, women were worse than men. Yet, I'd heard all that before when I worked for a few weeks at Jam Factory at Maryport. As this body said to me, never mind them colleges, lad, you'll get all the education you need here with us. But worst of all, I thought, was when Henderson Gill, a marvellous winger for Wigan, was barracked because he was coloured. I mean, who bias can you get? At Seaton, where I come from, we've just gotten a new bowling green. There was a time when bowls was regarded as just a game for old men. Old men's glabbies, as I've heard it described. Nowadays, though, it's popular with both young and old. I'm not a member at Seaton, but I sometimes like to watch them playing for our dyke. It's a peaceful game. There's no aggro. I would hate to think what would happen if they started throwing them things at the Somebody would certainly get a painful big toe. As some of you may know, the main thing about bowling, whether you play on a crown green or a flat green, is that principle of bias. You can hear players shouting at each other, a bit more biased at right, Jeff, or a bit more biased at left, Tom. The bowls, or woods, are biased. So if you bowl them straight, they're so weighted on your side that they'll always pull that way. You can have your woods, I'm told, made with a stronger bias or with a weaker bias. And a real keen bowler always owns his own woods. And he knows what they can do, and above all, he knows just how to master the bias. Now I reckon that to be human is to be biased. We've all got our private prejudices and biased attitudes. The thing is to try and master that bias within us. Take tonight's match at Azteca Stadium, England versus Argentina. Naturally, we all want England to win and then go on and win World Cup. It should be a grand match. Again, I'll be giving them short, sharp shift at even song tonight. Now, I'd like to see England put the kibosh on Maradona and them Argentinians. But it's coming to summit, isn't it? When them media folk are comparing tonight's football match to a rerun of Falklands War. And Sun newspaper says, bring on Darges. Now I ask you, and all them riot police, thousands of them that have to be on duty to keep rival fans apart. It makes you think, doesn't it? It makes you badly as well, doesn't it? I mean, is football still just a game anymore? Or is it, as Bill Shankly, late Liverpool and Wookitten Reds soccer manager, Jans said, a matter of life and death? Rather sadly today, as I look round, I see many signs of a move away from traditional British tolerance of which we as a country were Jans so proud. George Thomas, who was Speaker in House of Commons for many years, says sham thing in his book of memoirs called Mr. Speaker. He says that behaviour of MPs in Parliament has been getting worse over the years, making it much harder to keep order in chamber. I'm sure we can believe him as well. I mean, we hear them on radio, don't we? Shooting and corny and another. Second carry on. Technical term they use for all this is, I'm told, adversary politics, or politics of confrontation. What it means is really to sneer at your opponent, to shoot him down, and not to listen to aught that he's got to say. But it's not only in politics that we're seeing this growing intolerance, we're also seeing same sort of attitude in other spheres of life as well. It's a kind of attitude which means you're on in contempt those who didn't agree with your point of view. Even worse is suggestion that even when your opponent seems to be doing good, he's only doing it to serve his own ends. Now this attitude, I think, comes very near to being worst kind of sin. The sort of sin that Jesus Christ said could never be forgiven, and that's sin against Holy Ghost, which is really like calling good bad and also refusing to recognise another person's sincerity. Maybe you can mind an incident in Luke's Gospel which takes place at final stage of our Lord's ministry. As he screwed up his courage to go to Jerusalem, he decided to go by way of Samaria. Now this was a very bold step to take, because Jews and Samaritans, as you might know, hated each other's guts. They'd fallen out with each other about 100 years afore and wanted nought more to deal with each other. So when Jesus decided to go that way, he was really offering to them a hand of friendship to sworn enemies. However, as you may know, his offer of friendship and hospitality was turned down. When two of his martyrs, James and John, heard about this, well, they were livid. They wanted to call down fire from heaven and burn them all up. But Jesus turned round and told them off, and they went on to the next village. I think he was really laying down here our duty of tolerance towards others. Nowadays, there's far how much hassle and aggro, where folks is always shooting past each other, and there's not enough listening to what the other person wants to say. Mind you, I partly blame that Maggie Thatcher for all this. She once said about a member of the Conservative Party, one of them wets, of course, he's not one of us. We have to be most careful in our attitude towards those who are not one of us. We Cumbrians can be justly proud of our heritage, our environment and customs. But we have always to remember that there's beauty and good people in other areas as well. That not one of us mentality can lead to setting up of cliques and factions, which makes other people and folks feel out of it. Intolerance is a curse in our society, and we all know also that religious intolerance is the worst kind of intolerance, as our church history shows. It's very sad today when you hear of breakaway groups leaving our mainstream churches and setting up their own breakaway groups. I know of one or two of these groups where members will only listen to preachers who are so-called born-again Christians. And even our own Church of England seems to be in danger of tearing itself apart over issues like doctrine, where poor Bishop of Durham took some stick, and also on ordination of women. And we've always been such a broad church, taking on board those of different opinions and different approaches to faith. Of course, we should have our strong convictions and our firm opinions about our own faith and practice. Of course, we shouldn't be wishy-washy. But at the same time, we should always try to be courteous and tolerant to those who think different. As a fellow once said, remember that whatever thy hand finds to do, somebody else thinks differently. Never let us be duped by the following verse. We're God's chosen few, or others will be damned. There's no room in heaven for you. We can't have heaven crammed. In 1960s, many moons ago, I went to a theological college just outside Oxford called Ripon Hall, or as we used to call it, Ripping Hall. It closed shortly after I left. I don't know if there was any connection. However, Ripping Hall was a very liberal place. And I mind a clever fella who later became Dean of St John's College, Cambridge, very posh. And he summed up the spirit of our college when he said, we're going to be dogmatic, that we're not going to be dogmatic. We're going to be dogmatic, that we're not going to be dogmatic. Well, I think that sums up all that I've been trying to say. So what I'm going to do now is sit down and shut up. But I wish you all a warm goodbye and good luck.